Hello and welcome to the Tech and Toast podcast. We simplify the way you buy and manage your hospitality tech. You can click through to techontoast.community where you can search our marketplace, attend our events, grab your free tech audit, and we will help you visualize your tech stack as you grow into 2024. Meanwhile, summer in Australia.
Hey, Lou, do you think we should sponsor the Tech on Toast podcast? I mean, I really like Chris and I really like what it's all about.
Yeah, I think that's a ripper idea, LP. It's a perfect fit for what we do at Red Cat.
I mean, I agree. I'm just not sure how we get our message across around like Red Cat specializing in multi-site groups, like cafe groups and fast casual groups and QSRs and all that. Maybe
We mention some of our customers like Nando's in Australia, New Zealand, the restaurants at the Aussie Open, Boost Juice International. I mean, they've got over 700 sites.
Hang on. I think that was the sponsors. This is the Tech on Toast podcast. Enjoy the show. Okay, welcome to the next episode of the Tech on Toast podcast. And today we're delighted to be joined by Ben Brown, founder and CEO of Shopwave. Ben, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Super excited to be here.
And Ben's here sporting his own merchandise. I was just saying his logo's on camera, mine's not. But it's nice. You do any more merchandise, Ben, that we can get hold of?
We do. We have a merch guy in the office that is looking for any excuse to build,
to make
or design more merch. Yeah.
And I was saying you've got a grandiose title there, founder and CEO. I think that's what I call myself. Me and my 4 people, but yeah.
I hate it. And, personally, I don't believe in job titles. And myself and my co-founder, Julian, feel very much the same way. The challenge happens when you actually go and pitch and ask someone to put some money into your company,
yes.
right? And
you have to have one of those people, don't you? Yeah.
Who's the CEO? Who's the CTO? And we're like, we're both technical.
Yeah.
We both do a little business. We both do a bit of everything in the early days. That's how it works, right? And I'm like, no, one of you has to pick. So we just flip a coin, right? And it's like, right, I'm the CEO. You're the CTO.
And do you know what? I was laughing last week because I've actually gone and got some investment myself. Not on the levels that you guys go and get, but just we're opening a new part of the company, so I just wanted to take someone else's risk. But it's really interesting going through that process actually and understanding that you think you have a structure or you think you have a bit of a vision, but actually when you come down to really telling someone else about it or trying to get someone to believe in you, it's actually a lot harder than it looks, right?
Yeah.
Because it's your thing, so it's very hard to imagine someone else looking at it. Is it the same for you guys?
Very much so. And I mean, we're actually terrible at raising investment. We're very good at executing.
We're the worst.
Yeah. So people tend to get along with us very well when they start working with us.
Right.
Even from an investment
You just got to get in there.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of our early revenue actually came in on the back of executing and making money from customers. And then we've done multiple rounds of investment after that, but we had to prove ourselves first. There was no, there was certainly no kind of walking in with nothing but a pitch deck and people throwing money at us.
Yeah, no, that wasn't my world either. So anyway, look, before we get going, let's talk about Shopwave. That's why we're here. And give us your best pitch for Shopwave. Kind of, if I'm an investor, tell us what you do.
Yeah, exactly. Create mess most of the time. No, in terms of Shopwave is a multi-vertical retail technology platform. So for us, when we talk about retail, we say that is retail and restaurants. Right. And for us, restaurants are casual dining, QSR, and fine dining as well. Wow. So we go multi-format, and we have an ecosystem of applications. So that covers everything at very high level from POS and payments down to inventory. We have what's called the iPaaS, which is one of our core USPs, which is integration platform as a service.
Oh, tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's the most exciting bit of our technology.
Yeah, you mentioned this just before, and I was like, don't talk, I want to learn on the podcast.
No, exactly. So I think it's actually probably useful if I just get into how we created Shopwave and why.
Look, this is your stage. Carry on.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so 25 years experience, done absolutely everything. So retail, working at Game, which is GameStop, if anyone's from the US from your audience.
Oh, yeah.
Moved into F&B. So started as pot wash at Pizza Hut, of all places.
I didn't realise this. This is great.
Yeah,
okay, good.
So again, everyone at Shopwave, it doesn't matter what level they are. If they're a VP, they're an engineer, they have to get into the kitchen or onto the shop floor. So they really understand the challenges and what goes on in the real world.
Love that.
So I think there's a massive disconnect when you look at a lot of the technology startups where the engineers won't get in.
It's where we sit, right? I think it's where we sit, actually. Part of our job is to make sure that we are educating both sides of the coin.
Exactly.
But actually that the tech guys understand all about the industry. And, obviously they know about it, but really pull the curtains back a bit and have a look at it. But also this year we're going to spend some time educating the operators on what you guys do, not just the founder and CEO, but more about the developers, the people who work in customer success, the people who work on the tech teams, and just really expose that actually there's a whole bunch of people working really hard here as well to help you. Yeah. So there is there's a give and take here, a push and pull.
That's so valuable. And when we work with a lot of our clients, when you're actually selling to the stakeholders, we'll be at the very high level. in terms of it will be the CFO, the CEO, the CIO, and they'll always want to know, like, have any of you actually worked in a kitchen? We're like, yeah. I've like, so again, I started at the pot wash, move on to the salad station. So, I mean, back in the day, you actually had to chop all of the onion and
that's right,
cabbage, right? Right now, it's all just comes in a bag and you throw it in, right?
That's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, the times have changed a lot. So some nice skills there. And and then as you work your way up into being a waiter, and then you get the tips, which is like kind of luxury.
It's mad. How have you got from there to here though? Because it's because you're obviously technical. I can tell by your makeup, like you are a technical guy.
Yeah.
And because they're two quite different skill sets, aren't they? Working in hospitality to working in the tech world.
Yep.
Or they probably shouldn't be, but they are. They really are, aren't they?
So in the early days, it was actually having a look at the infrastructure there and having a look at kind of what is scalable and what is everywhere. So I've always had the passion to start my own company, and that become like actually a combination of things. So one is looking at things like Y Combinator and the scale of that accelerator over in Silicon Valley. And then being British, there's always that little bit of only fools and horses, right? Where it's like, how can we actually do something that's got some scale and is more interesting, and like just the entrepreneurial aspect. So for me, being in a kind of international chain, you look at the bit where everything goes through. So where are all the orders going through? Where is the stock going through? Where's the finance going through? And then it's essentially payments and point of sale. So that took me into the payment space and into banking.
Wow.
So I ended up doing my time there and learning a hell of a lot, actually.
Payments is a thing that we want to tackle this year, really about the breakdown of a payment in terms of what an operator might pay, you know, in terms of the hidden. So I hear people saying it's 0.3%. That's all you'll pay. But
I mean, when I got into payments in the UK, people were paying over 3% plus. Like if we look onto debit cards, they were paying 20 pence per transaction on top of the. So in my view, it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be, and the technology is a lot better, right? So
do you think there's enough transparency around it? And I don't mean transparency; people are hiding stuff as such. But do you think there's enough transparency in terms of? Do you think the operators really understand the true cost of a payment through their bar or through their restaurant?
10 years ago, 100% no.
Right.
Even now, I'd say it's 50-50. But there's a lot of work going on where the payments companies themselves know they're going to make more money, their net promoter score is going to go up, and they're going to reduce churn if their customers understand how much they're paying and how that impacts their margins at the end of the month.
Yeah, I was up at Dojo's office in Paddington, and I was talking to Chris Jolliffe there, and they were showing me the structure behind their payments, and it was quite transparent, I thought. It was interesting, but we definitely want to get into more of that.
If you go back, like kind of into the world paid days, 10 years
that's exactly
back,
what I was referring to.
And like I had friends there back at the time, and if you have a look at the statement, you kind of, I mean, when I was in banking, like everyone there was super smart, right? And I in a lot of cases, I don't actually think it was intentional.
Yeah.
So when I was working in the architecture, the technology architecture there, and it's like the person to the right of me was a rocket scientist.
Yeah.
Everyone else to the left of me was an MBA, right? And it's just like for them, it's second nature to read, but that doesn't translate into owner operator, especially in this. Yeah,
because we one of the things we do, we help with messaging websites, right, in the tech, so they can communicate to the people that communicate. And we just looked at a website today of a tech provider who are huge, and it read like they were talking to each other rather than to their customers.
Exactly.
And it made us laugh because my guys aren't that way. They're all operators, and they're like, I don't understand what it does. And I was like, well, this is what it does. I get it, but I know because that's how they speak. But I think that's a big piece, isn't it, to untangle?
Yeah. There's a massive disconnect, and what we saw there, again, like payments touches absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Back then it was 50-50 card, right? Now it's most places pushing to 100%.
What's cash?
100% card. And when that happened, like, I mean, people think cash is free, but cash is not free. Like if you have a look at cash, I mean, the things that happen the most, like the time in terms of counting,
theft,
mismatches, theft,
and pickup, security, all that, It's really actually, that's a really interesting point because no one really ever looked at it that way, did they?
Just to give you an idea, back in the day, like it's like 18. They used to send us to the bank with like 30k in the bag, right?
Yes. I used to put it in my car under the passenger seat and go to the post office with it. Same route every day.
Yeah, it's you've got a lot of trust in me to be doing this, right? But it's just like so, and theft did occur at great scale. And then when you actually work the time of count, the time of actually jumping in your car, taking that money to the bank, is easily more than a percent or whatever retail.
That's really interesting. I don't think anyone ever unravels it that way, like you just did then. So naturally, look, you might be paying 0.7, but how much were you losing, plus how much you were paying through Securica and all the other things you were doing around cash before. So yeah, very interesting. Sorry, carry on.
Then, so basically, as part of that, it's kind of you just get promoted.
Yeah.
Ended up looking after.
Well, you did.
Everyone,
My
right? If
journey
you
was
work
different.
hard, right? Yeah. It's like you started work, very lucky, just in terms of the journey, and got to work in R&D around payments. And then one of the things that we started looking at was couponing and discounts, and how you can engage consumers through that and drive up average basket values. So I ended up accidentally starting a startup. Then around coupon, it's just we had this concept. No one wanted to do it, and I met my co-founder just at a conference. I'm like, "Are you interested in doing this?" Yeah. We're both like, "This is fun. Let's just go out at lunchtime and speak. Go and have a beer and go and speak to retailers." So we spoke to 10 retailers and said, "Hey, if we build an application, are you interested in putting your coupons into this application?" It was just around the time when the iPhone launched.
Wow.
So in terms of GPS, it's the first iPhone with a GPS around 2008. So we can location tag your coupons, we can put them onto a map, we can get people, let's just do it out of interest. We'll see how far will people travel for a good enough discount. And we saw people traveling halfway across London when it's was there any doubt you're offering the cocktails for free, right? Okay, let's
tell people.
Let's actually try and focus on move away from revenue now. Let's actually focus on profit and increasing the ABV and really engaging the consumers, right? And that scaled very quickly. So basically, when we actually pushed that into the App Store, Apple featured it on the homepage. Overnight, we had 50,000 downloads.
Oh my God.
It's impossible to do that now. And that basically happened by accident. And
wow.
We had...
What was it called?
The app at the time was... it was a network behind the scenes. It was called Voucher. The first app that we published that got hit by Apple was called Snaffle. And that was in conjunction with lastminute.com. So
wow.
What we tried to do, we were like, okay, we've got no brand, we've got no money. How can we try and actually get some exposure? So we partnered with lastminute.com. We spoke to these 10 retailers. They've said they're interested in doing it. Are you interested in putting your brand onto it? And they said yes.
Wow. So then 50,000 downloads is pretty
50,000 downloads.
Imagine waking up that morning going, oh, well, that worked.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, right? And we were like, obviously these users are all over the country and they're like, 1 star, where are they? There's only 10 retailers on this. It's useless. So it's like, okay, what do we do with this? And we had to build up from scratch and build up the underlying network and the tracking system.
Customers.
Yeah, exactly, right? So again, wasted opportunity. Now, I mean,
but get that opportunity is golden, right? You wouldn't, as you say, getting that kind of exposure now is nigh impossible without a big spend behind you.
So we built up a coupon network with the ability to track the coupons and distribute them. In addition to Last Minute, we ended up doing Samsung Mobile Wallet, My Voucher Codes, E-Mobile Network, O2 Priority Moments. So if you, again, back around that time, if you downloaded a voucher from one of the top chain restaurants, we probably had a hand in it somehow.
Wow. That's really cool.
And,
I love that.
Our biggest challenge was point of sale integration.
Yes,
okay,
well, so nothing's happened there.
No, exactly. Well, and that's why we started
Maybe in
Shopwave.
your world, but there's a lot of people
exactly.
I speak to.
So we ended up, we had 2,000, and we were doing card linking, we were doing, every type of barcode going, 2D barcodes, 1D. At the time, you can even scan a card from the phone properly, right? But our view was, at the time when people started doing it, they were doing it just around the transaction.
Right.
So it's has a transaction taken place? And our view was we have to push to the retailer the value not just of driving revenue, but driving profit. So we have to get down to basket content level and actually target people to buy items that are higher margin for the retailer. And that's why we wanted a point of sale integration. So at the time we went to Oracle, we went to NCR. At first they wouldn't even pick up the phone.
Start small, why don't you?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, before long we had 2,000 retailers on this network.
Wow.
Okay, and all verticals, restaurant, the value you can provide in a quiet February when they're struggling, and you can actually get people.
And it's evergreen, right? That never goes away.
Exactly.
That problem every year is there.
Yeah, it is very secular. So at the time,
very.
we were doing it just after the credit crunch, 2008. People were trying to maintain their lifestyle. They still wanted to go out and have a good time. And on the back of the coupons, we were able to do that, and we're also able to fill up retailers. And
it's interesting because discounting, right? For instance, whatever you want to call it, in the industry, has always been a bit. Pizza Express did it really well for years, right?
Yeah.
And they've always been quite clever with it. And I think it's got a bit of a bad name, but actually done well, it's life saving, right? As in, it can really keep you ticking in those months you just talked about.
Yeah, my view is an extremely well managed discount campaign is extremely powerful if you constantly do it and you rely on it to drive revenue, or you're kind of cheating to drive that.
Yeah, it has to be hyper-focused, doesn't it, on that particular period
100%. It has to be
person.
targeted. You cannot run a constant 20% off all year. If you look, a good example of this is Body Shop. Okay? Like, if we look back a few years ago, 40% of their transactions all through the year were as a result of a coupon.
It's quite depressing.
Yeah, but what you do is, one, you create deal fatigue, and two, you hook your users onto using coupons. So no one is actually...
Yeah, you haven't got any of those golden raving fans that come to you for a normal price. It's like buying my wife flowers every day. It's my excuse to her. If I did it every day, she wouldn't appreciate it.
And my view is, if it's highly targeted, if it's as a surprise, if it's to engage, if you've had a new baby, right? If it's your birthday, fantastic. Give someone something for free. It doesn't have to be this. I think in Carluccio's, I used to be a director at Carluccio's many years ago, and we used to in January we used to do our 2-for-1 offer, and it was I can't remember what we called it now, but the team used to hate it. Yeah.
I mean, it was fantastic for the company because we had a lot of new people in that we'd never see normally. They all came back after Christmas. So they all basically did a contract with us to agree to spend in January, even though they wouldn't normally. So we met all these new people, but it was just horrific because it was low margin for all the teams. The GMs understood they weren't making as much money, so they were reluctant to put enough labor on, and round we go. But it was it was so regular that it did become a problem. It became a bit of a...
So if you look at the value, if you want to engage, what you're trying to do is get the retailer or the consumer to give you their information. Yeah. So you want their email address, their telephone number, and then you agree in a way at which you engage which the customer actually wants. So that can be a contactless check-in. When that customer walks in through the door, you can actually go and shake their hands and introduce yourself by name, right? And that creates something very special. So they're not just going to give you their email. You need a reason to onboard them.
Yeah.
And for me, like a one-off coupon is a very good way of doing that, and then you can really drive up like both frequency and your average basket values or your average check sizes.
That's probably the most interesting conversation I've had around coupons ever. Yeah. Thank you very much. No, it's amazing.
Let's say the Oracle and initially not even talking to us, and then after a while it's like, you can integrate, but you have to pay us a couple of $100K. Okay, let's try and raise some money to go and do that. And then it's like, okay, if you pay that, the retailer also has to pay that. And then the retailer's just like, hell no. We'll just track them on CSVs, or we'll do a static coupon code, right? And it was just so painful for us. The more we spoke to the retailers, the more we realized probably the majority of our 2,000 retailers hated their point of sale system. It wasn't just our integration around coupons that wasn't being done properly. It was everything.
Yeah.
They had like 20 systems. If they were lucky, their accounting platform was integrated. But in most cases, not even that was integrated.
And how do you think that's changed now, today, compared to not just with Shopwave, but just generally in the the EPOS world? Do you think, if you could percentagize how much better we've got since that point, is it much better now, or are we still struggling with integrations?
I think we're still struggling with integrations in a huge way. The reason is there's a lot of box ticking going on. So when you look at a lot of the integrations, someone will go for if it's a small retailer, they'll look into an app store. If it's a large retailer, they'll go for an RFP process. In a lot of cases, the provider will tick to say they do the integration. They'll do 10% of the integration just to be able to say that they did the integration. So if there's 100 data points, they'll do 5 data points.
Yeah, and I think that's, someone said to me, there's an integration, then there's an integration.
Exactly. So they have to be, and the other thing is, it's not always a point of sale provider. Even today, most of the point of sale providers are still reliant on middleware. Yeah. And if the middleware breaks, in most cases, there's no SLA. So if you've done an integration, depends what it is, right? If it's just something fancy and it doesn't, you're just doing it for fun, or if it's of minor interest.
Is that what you do?
Not for us, right? But if it's a minor interest and it breaks and it takes them a week to fix it, that's fine. If it's your integration and it breaks, and
it's costing you money daily.
Every second, it's costing you money. Every
hourly.
And that translates into bad Google reviews and bad customer experience, right? So in our view, those integrations need to be maintained. The SLA needs to be up there. We in the case of Shopwave, we're aiming for 5 nines in terms of uptime. It just always has to be on, proactively monitored, and every one of those integrations should be bespoke. And the reason we're able to do that is because we focus on mid-market. So for us, that is direct sales for us is mid-market.
Yeah.
Via channel, we work with indies. But then where we work with indies, we try to package and actually create a service for them rather than actually coming and do the bespoke integrations because they won't have the budget.
There's a real need, right? I was about to say the budget is the big blocker, right? And we're dealing with I'll give them a shout out, Homies on Donkeys,
Okay,
which are a really cool brand, and they came through the website last week. They are challenged in terms of how much they can spend on the tech stack, but the reality is you can access pretty much enterprise style tech from a low budget, right? When I say enterprise style, as in they can access great tech.
Yep.
At a really low level cost at the moment, I believe. But are you going to tell me the integration problem still sits there?
It depends. Is what I'm going to say. So my view, if you're an indie and you're taking a package, is and that's let's just say you're doing it right. You're going to work with them. You're going to package a recipe management platform. You're going to package. I'm not sure I want to name names if I do something. Let me just say you can.
They're all friends. They're all partners.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Let's just say as an indie now, you can go for workforce management and do like a deputy.
Yeah.
You can do something like Market Man for recipe management.
Yeah.
You can plug that into your point of sale. Even for BI, you can use something like Tenzo.
Yeah.
Right. You can get a really nice package there that if you go back 10 years ago, you could have easily blown $1 million up front trying to get the same functionality working. So from that perspective, it's improved in a massive way. Where it hasn't is if you're mid-market and you have customer requirements, especially around data. Even if we take something as simple as like net revenue, there's probably 3 different people within the organization that have a different definition for what net revenue is. And that's where you start to get the challenge with things like Forth.
I think what's really interesting, we've been doing these tech stack reviews. I talk about them all the time. People are like, oh, shut up, Chris, they're so bored of them. But I was just showing you one before we started, right, on our Miro board of what we did for one of our clients. And for me, the interesting part is not particularly the actual tech. It's the ownership of that within the business, as in who owns what they're doing, and no one really owns the tech stack, in mid-market. Yeah. So, because you don't have a CTO, you probably may have an IT outsourced, or you may have a head of IT, but they're not really attached to it. So, there's different silos working. So people own workforce management, marketing own CRM, and that goes round and round. But the reality is that the real power of the data is coming through all of that into one place, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's where they're struggling, where they've got all these systems going on, but they don't look at it from a helicopter view. They look at it as my little bit. And I think that's the challenge we're finding. And often it comes back to POS, and we're kind of saying to them in the tech stack reviews that, look, our recommendation is you are going to change that POS.
Yes.
Maybe not today, but within the next 2 years, you're definitely going to change that.
I'll tell you, the biggest problem around integration is a lot of the POS platforms have been around a long time. There's 2 things that have happened. They've been around a long time. They've tried to build an API on top of it, but it was never built in the first place to manage those integrations, and certainly not built to manage multiple integrations.
So like server-based versus cloud-based versus...
exactly. They're still reliant on on-prem and FTP and things like that, and they fail. And they're a mess, and they need to be maintained. And that maintenance is something often that doesn't happen. The other thing that we're seeing is a massive consolidation in industry. So a lot of the next-gen platforms that started opening up and trying to do integration are now being acquired. The founders leave. Once those founders leave, they're milked like a cash cow. So you know what happens, right?
What a pleasant term. They're milked like a cash cow.
Exactly. So like a big private equity company will buy another point. They'll buy it. The founders are not there anymore. So the R&D grinds to a halt and the price goes up. And we've seen like massive innovation, a lot of democracy of technology that's opened on the back of like funding being available in the VC ecosystem, the interest rates being low. That's coming to an end now, right?
Yeah.
And
and they're landlocked. I call it landlocked, right? Or they're tech locked. They've got. So I think you're probably alluding to what I think you are, but there's some of the bigger players own 5 or 6 products, right? So if you have their POS, then you probably have their CRM, you probably have their workforce management, and if you want to change, it's almost like you got to chuck it all out.
They're forcing their customers onto certain, and this is what's happening is we're actually getting back to the old days where Oracle and Micros were forcing their customers to use their loyalty platform and their payment
because they were the only ones in the village, right, at the time.
Oh, not just that, they acquired something or build something, and that was a way for them to drive up revenue, right? Their net dollar retention, drive up revenue per customer, and you need to be open and give the customer the choice, right? That is my perspective. You can package and you can give them the option of taking something, but when you're actually forcing them to say something and actually saying you cannot pick your loyalty provider, or you cannot build your own loyalty provider. To me, that's a huge problem. Look at how the retailers really can actually differentiate themselves. In a lot, it's via the marketing, via the way they engage, via their product. It's not necessarily like, hey, I've got this tech I'm throwing in your face. It's behind the scenes and being able to consolidate that data. Which we're doing a lot around, and that's really interesting to me, where we have this combination of retail and restaurants. So both of the industries do things slightly differently.
I was going to say, how different are they?
For me, very different and very similar at the same time. And we're seeing a lot of consolidation. So what we're seeing now, if you look at what it takes for a restaurant to be popular now, they have to be Instagrammable. They have to sell merch, right? So then you're actually getting retail requirements coming into the restaurant space.
E-commerce.
100% subscriptions, e-com, vouchers. And then within the retail space, we're having department stores, they want to create an experience. So they're opening restaurant functionalities. They're opening restaurants on site, cafes on site.
I remember when Giraffe went into Tesco. I don't know if you remember, yeah? And that was like the first example of, and I thought it was a good idea. I thought actually it didn't work. But but that kind of, can we change that horrible experience of going on the weekly food shop? Is there a way of doing it? And, they didn't quite get there. But I think that's what's happening in hospitality, that they're looking at in retail, they're looking at the experiential side of hospitality and thinking we need that in our lives. And we're looking at that subscription e-com kind of approach where we can get regular income, monthly income out of something we're already doing, and also spread the brand.
So if you have a look at what we're doing in retail, for example, we're doing clienteling. So you understand who that customer is the second they walk through the door, what size clothes they are, what their likes, what their dislikes are.
And this is part of Shopwave.
This is part of Shopwave. Do they even want to be approached? Should you leave them alone? What engages them in your brand? What products, right? In the restaurant space, this doesn't really exist.
How do you get that information then? Do you get it from loyalty, from... How do you
this
gather
is
that?
The customers actually opting in.
Right.
So again, the data is very, very valuable, but at the same time, it can be a liability if it's not managed properly.
Yes.
So from our perspective, a lot of that is tokenized and anonymized and encrypted in terms of the way it's stored. Okay, but if the customer makes the choice and wants to actually share that with the retailer, that's up to them. There's many ways of doing that. That can be via. Again, we see that via loyalty application.
Yeah.
And things like, also actually, if we look into the hotel space as well, it's really interesting. So a lot of the hotels now are doing kind of seamless check-in. You don't have to walk up to the counter anymore. If you've got the app and you've enabled it and you say, I want this functionality, they'll come out and they'll greet you by name and shake your hand.
I stay at the other house in Kensington, and I think they've got Lightspeed and Muse are their combination. And actually, it's ace. When you check in, I go there regularly, right? And it's just a nice and genuinely, someone said to me, I had the head of IT from Roccaforte Hotels on the podcast, and he talked about the fact that what is luxury, and he said it's when you get something you don't get at home.
Exactly.
And I was trying to work out, what do I get from staying there, and that is it. Not just the tech, but seamless is the word you used. I don't get bothered. I basically go in, walk in, do my mini check-in, which is literally sign an iPad as I walk past them.
And I think there's a lot of... What happens is there's a lot of bad implementation of the technology. So they do it in a way that is kind of grifty, they're over kind of pushing, sending too many emails. It's not about that. And even I think on the back of COVID, we've seen a lot of bad habits and bad technology implemented to solve problems. And I mean, the only way to solve that is with good technology, right?
Well, I think mainly, unfortunately, what we're doing is untangling tech from that era, from that area where everyone, to be compliant, you had to buy tech, right? Even if you didn't want to. And I think what we're ending up looking at is just, and there was a lot of consolidation, I think, online. Let's talk about online ordering.
In terms of touchsures, right? There's good touchscreens and there's bad touchscreens. And for us, where they actually take the counter where the people used to go and put the touchscreen and the huge screen right in your face, and that is saying, don't talk to me and don't engage with me, just give me the money. To me, that is crazy. And to me, it's all about giving choice. We can actually leverage one person and turn them into 10 by having them and they actually greeting the people, engaging them, taking them through the products while they're actually interfacing with the touchscreen themselves. You create a really nice environment doing that because you actually create speed. Funny story, actually. So we actually used to work with Department of Coffee and Social Affairs. So another one that unfortunately didn't make
totally
it
random,
right? Yeah, exactly, right? But I'll tell you what's interesting. In terms of the action, they had a number of sites where they had limited staff members. So they wanted the staff to focus on production and actually making the coffee, right? One of them was next to a gym. So when the yoga class kicked out, you have 30 people walking into the coffee shop at once to going, wherever they're getting their, like...
They're vanilla latte.
It may not, it's probably not an espresso, right? It's probably something like matcha chill out drink, right? But 30 people would hit them at once and they just couldn't cope. So we put again, 3 terminals in there. Between those 3 terminals, one person, like joking, shaking their hand, talking to them as they came in. Yeah, all of that, right? And as a result of that, they were able to speed up the throughput like hugely. The first person that actually walked in was Jason Statham from that kind of action.
My double.
Like, yeah, exactly. And he walked in, saw the touchscreen. He's like, you know me, I don't want to mess with this shit. What are you guys talking about? Right? They don't put touchscreen in my face, and it's like, okay, right. Very quickly, you realize actually this is a very powerful tool if it's implemented correctly, and I think what we do see, bad implementations of touchscreen, especially where they're like 3 times, you have to kind of move up and down.
I just think maybe it's almost
in your face.
Somewhat tech for tech's sake sometimes, or maybe.
It should be behind the scenes. Again, we're getting to that word, right? Seamless. The tech should be behind the scenes. It should enable improved interaction. It should enable improved speed and improved experience overall.
And I think that comes from, and that's obviously when it's been Olivia from who was formerly of Sessions and now Market Halls was talking about tech should be behind the people, not in front of it.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and I thought that was a really lovely quote she made. And she said, "I get speed, I get efficiency. We need it. We're in a market hall environment. We've got multiple products, multiple problems. Probably with tech, it's probably a difficult thing to manage. But she said the minute we start putting it in the way, or trying to cause a barrier between the people and the product, then we may as well shut the doors." And I thought it was just a really, really nice way to talk about it.
And definitely for someone like if you have a look, again, that's a key case study where we actually come in and are really able to make a difference where there's complexity to the real estate. So if they're operating across multiple territories and multiple brands, franchise.
Is that happening more now because there's more revenue streams, because there's more opportunity?
Yeah, so we're seeing brands coming from the US to the UK, from the UK to the US, and then another arm off into the Middle East and into Asia. And when that happens, that's where you have breakdowns in tech platforms. So if they take one of the next gen providers, they may be able to do the US. Some of them are not even doing the UK.
How do you manage different markets? So if you're going into different markets potentially where they want you, so they say, okay, Shopwave, we want you, but we want you all over the world.
The next gen platforms were built to democratize, take a bulky, unattractive system and make it cheaper, make it look good. They were never planned to kind of go global. Right. We, from day one, planned to go global.
I'm not surprised after 50,000 downloads. Thought we're quite good at this.
But our view was you've got the next gen players that are doing very good in the indie space.
Yeah.
Enterprise, you're a supermarket, Oracle and NCR are doing their job right. But for us, we saw the opportunity between 30 million, which is at the point at which these scale problems really start to kick off, up to around 1.52 billion. That is the sector of the market that is really untouched. There's not a dominant player there, and that's what we were looking to take.
Wow.
And that is, again, it's on the back of this kind of expansion. A lot, you have a lot of experiential brands that may open, even they'll do the first 5 sites in the UK, then they'll go to the US, then they'll go over to, even now we're seeing UAE and Saudi as well. Then they'll go off into Asia. So
Saudi's interesting. Isn't it? Someone was telling me the government there are really backing tech in hospitality.
Yeah, 100%. So they've got the 2030 plan, and they're attempting to modernize in a big way. I think when we started working, you were not even allowed to go into the country, right? You need to be invited. Yeah. And now I think that whole process has opened up, and they're trying to pull in new technology providers.
It's kind of like when you open, if you ever want to build a tech stack, you do it from restaurant 1, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like country 1. Yeah. Because they're kind of building, but building it right. In terms of the future then for you guys, because obviously you've got Shopwave is kind of existing and serving a huge audience right now. What does the future look like for you? Not just for you, but for you. What do you think is going to? You've talked a bit about the future of tech. What do you think is coming over the next 2 to 3 years?
Both the technology market and the retail market is secular. So every time there is a kind of boom and bust cycle, we have merchants are forced into innovation and change. So we see we've COVID forced a lot of change. Not all of that change was good.
Yeah.
So we're saying 2 things. A lot of prime real estate is now becoming available, and new retail brands are going to be kicking up and launching globally.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a lot of scale around that, and then also untangling the bad implementations of technology that got put in place during COVID that impacted experience negatively, and how that can actually be improved. So again, it's not necessarily moving technology behind the scenes, but it's actually giving the customer the choice of how they engage with the merchant.
Yeah, and getting the best. I said to someone the other day, they were talking about their POS again, and I said, look, would you accept second best in your people?
Yeah.
In your brand? And they were like, no. And I said, so why do you do it? Why do you allow yourself to be told by an external person who doesn't care about you, really?
Yeah.
Doesn't care about your people. You know,
I'll give you a couple of really awesome case studies. So just in terms of our customer base and going global as well, we've worked with both Facebook and Deliveroo. So Facebook and Meta, what we actually did, we tried to take a safe environment, which is their office location.
Right.
Okay. And we implemented our product over multiple sites. Dual vertical. So all of those sites were both food, beverage, coffee, and merch. So you could buy everything at each site on every single floor. And we gave people the choice of how they wanted to interact. So if they wanted to, they could go and chat with the barista and order at the counter. They could order from self-service, or they could order from their mobile device. So you can imagine, it's really giving everything. And what we found...
Sounds brave.
Yeah, exactly right. And again... we had an absolutely amazing barista, really nice guy to chat with. There was always in there, every single floor. The actual team were amazing, right? But the same people that came in every day wanted to engage in a different way. So if you're if it's a slow day and you're kind of chilled and you're happy, you're perfectly happy to chat with the barista, talk about your weekend, understand how. They're able to drive experience in that way. If you're late for a meeting, you just want your coffee to be there. So you're actually doing pre-order and it's ready and you just grab it off the counter. You can give the barista a fist bump and then go. There's no need to be rude. And sometimes that same person is happy to actually engage with a touchscreen. The reason they'll engage with a touchscreen is actually because they want to have a look through 50 different coffee modifiers without actually holding
They're
up
feeling
the queue,
different that day. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's when you actually provide a good experience and good technology in that way, you'll find people actually just engage better and they actually explore the menu without just throwing discounts at them. So with some of our loyalty campaigns, without stamp cards, without discounts, we're getting 70% customer onboarding and lookup on every single transaction. And it's just as a result of engaging them and making their shop or their meal feel like an experience rather than just a transaction.
Nobody returns for a transaction. That's right.
Exactly right.
I love, and that stat there is a nice way to end because 70%, I think, did you say 70% traction from the,
yeah.
It's crazy.
Again, I think more, I was going to say one other thing I think we're going to see a lot of, just consolidation and innovation in terms of ownership models and franchising, especially around kind of food halls and things like that within the F&B space.
Do you think? Yeah, you think that's going to grow even further than it has? Because I think some of the sessions are fantastic. Market halls where I go to.
We've got Arcade, Market Hall, and I think they're all going to go omni-channel as well. And it's not just going to be, again, it's not going to be about the transaction. It's engaging them and trying to drive more revenue through subscription, through merch, even recipe kits and things like that. That is the way to actually take something that is moderately successful and turn it into something that is an absolute superpower and can lead to follow an investment scale and IPO.
Love that, and I think that's the interesting bit about growing your brand as well. It's not just about the tech; it's actually about brand extension that you can get go omni-channel, find different customers you were never going to meet.
The Americans do it well, and we don't do enough of it in the UK. To me, it's a huge opportunity for all operators.
Yeah, I love it. And look, I guarantee you, people are going to want to talk to you. So, how do they get hold of you? What's the best way to stalk you? Is it LinkedIn?
They can stalk me on LinkedIn. I mean, even if they just go to help and email us and just mention my name, it will get forwarded straight to me. Yep.
Look, thanks, Ben. I appreciate it. And Ben is the only person to get into my studio before I did. So he actually snuck in here today. So thank you very much for coming, mate. And if you want some merch as well, give him a shout. Ben, say bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.